Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
All right, Mr. DeMille, I'm ready for my close-up.
Dodge this.
Hello, and welcome to the 20th episode of the Holy Moment Podcast, a podcast where we watch movies with you and discuss the moments that work, the moments that don't, and the moments that make cinema truly special. I'm joined here today by my lovely co-host, as always, Nathaniel Lirio. Say hi, Nathaniel.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome to our 20th episode. And it looks like on our 20th episode, Jeffrey, you decided to finally keep your promise. To those who are just listening on audio, Jeffrey's face is covered in blood, definitely not ketchup, and I can only assume he finally followed through on his threat, and he killed Scout for not sending us an email. So good job, Jeffrey. Good on you. Committing homicide for the 20th episode ever. Congratulations.
I have. Listen, if that isn't a strategy to get more emails, killing our loyal listeners, then I don't know what is. Anyhow, today we are discussing the high-octane action 1988 film Die Hard, starring Bruce Willis as John McClane, Alan Rickman as Hans Gruber, Bonnie Bedelia as Holly Gennaro, and Reginald Bell Johnson as Sergeant Al Powell. I love these characters. I don't know about you, but they're all very distinctive, and I think the movie did a great job of just making them relatable and people that you wanted to root for. Save for Hans. Hans is not so much someone you want to root for, but
he was the man. I was behind him full stop. The whole movie, I was cheering for him. I was like, "Go Hans! Look at that mediocre goatee." Yeah,
listen, that smooth British accent and that finely tailored suit. He could convince me to do anything, I'm sure. But we're discussing Die Hard, the famous Christmas movie, ?
It's the question that we're here to answer, I do believe.
Yeah, that's one of the big ones for sure. So, okay, to begin this podcast off then, I'm going to ask this question both to you, Nathaniel, and to our audience, but do you think that Die Hard is a Christmas movie? Right? Before I'd ever seen Die Hard, I knew about the controversy, right? The arguments, right? That would get pretty heated, pretty vehemently, one side or the other. But what do you think, Nathaniel?
Well, I feel like, I don't know what the definition of a Christmas movie is. I feel like you have the classic Christmas movies, your It's a Wonderful Life, it's your Buddy the Elf, and then you have like your new day age Christmas movies, which is all like Hallmark stuff. But at the end of the day, Christmas is about having a good time. It's about sharing a warm drink, loving your neighbors, and it's just about the magical season. And I feel like this movie has all of that. It has magical wonders. It has someone running around dressed in red, bringing unexpected gifts to people in a building. What's more Christmas than that? But no, truly at the end of the day, yeah, 100%. I don't know why this couldn't be a Christmas movie. It's set during the holidays. There's Christmas music in it. I think that's it. I think that's like basically the only two. Not even. There are a ton of Christmas movies that do the whole thing. It's like Christmas in July, Christmas in June. It's like, it's hot, but it's Christmas. We're quirky. So it doesn't even have to happen during Christmas. I think the only thing that makes it a Christmas movie is that it itself is kind of like, we're doing Christmas. And yeah, so I feel like Die Hard falls into the Christmas theme for sure.
Yeah, Christmas movies are about vibes and aesthetic, honestly. And, coming into this, I knew pretty much nothing about Die Hard save for Bruce Willis and the Christmas controversy, right? And I'll tell you what I was expecting. I was expecting it to have maybe one or two passing references to Christmas, and then it not actually being a quote-unquote Christmas movie. Because whenever I'd heard people argue about it, it seemed that that's what people were saying, is it's a stretch to call it a Christmas movie. But I watched the movie and I see no reason why one couldn't call it a Christmas movie, right?
Yeah. It feels absolutely in the lane of Christmas. And also, maybe sometimes during the holiday season, yeah, it's great. We love feel good, happy, they're singing, they're dancing, they're kissing. Those are all great. But sometimes maybe during Christmas, you want a little bit of action. So I feel like there needs to be multiple genres for Christmas. We can't just have romance and comedy be the only Christmas movies. Stop hogging Christmas. There are a lot of genres out there. We need like some dramatic Christmases. We need some period piece Christmases, horror Christmas. We need it all.
It's a Wonderful Life. Is that really explicitly about Christmas? Or is it just the story of a man who is discovering what life would be like if he'd never been born? It just so happens to take place during Christmas. But it's not like they're constantly referencing Santa Claus.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like in Die Hard. Like Christmas does kind of feel like a backdrop, but not so much that it's definitely not integral to the point of the movie. But it feels enough of, like you said, vibes. It feels enough like they're always mentioning it's Christmas or it's the holiday season. There's not many scenes where there's not a slight nod to it. I couldn't quite tell. Obviously, there are some songs that are just straight up Christmas, like they're just singing Christmas songs. But when they do like the soundtrack that was like made specifically for Die Hard, I swear, like even the like more dramatic, heavy, tense parts, I swear they like snuck a little bit of like Christmas-esque sounding music into the more sinister parts of the music. I don't know. Did you get that at all?
I got that 100%. Like, Ode to Joy. Da, 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 da. Yeah, like that's a very Christmassy song, right? It might not be explicitly Christmas, but people play it around Christmas time. Ode to Joy. And if you were paying attention to the music, there were scenes where Hans Gruber was present, and a sinister minor key version of Ode to Joy was playing. And so Christmas is thoroughly infused throughout the film.
Yeah, I fully agree. I think to anyone that says it's not a Christmas film is just a hater and they don't want to have a good time. Me personally, I think this Christmas, I'm going to go join a terrorist group and I'm going to go, storm a building, blow up some tanks. Nothing more Christmassy than that. Would you join me, Jeffrey, for this Christmas holiday season of 2025?
There's nothing I'd want to do more.
What would our terrorist group name be?
Okay, maybe like a variation of our podcast name, like the Holy Momentum.
Oh, that's good.
Bulldozing the opposition, right?
Yeah, I like it. It also could be flipping it the other way. We could be the unholy moment, the diabolical moment, or two tasty terrorists, because there's two of us, and I assume we're tasty. I assume if you cook us, we would taste good. I don't know how this is the point of the plot of Die Hard, but it makes sense.
I mean, I've got ketchup on my face.
There it is. We've made the connection, folks.
Anyhow, with that question out of the way, we spent a lot of time on that question. Anyhow.
It's the question people want to know. It's what we're here to. We're not here for ourselves, Jeffrey. We're here for the people. And the people want to know.
You're right. I shouldn't be selfish and talk about what I want to talk about. I should heed the needs of our audience. But anyhow, movie begins. We're on an airplane, right? And we meet our main character, John McClane, who's a New York cop, right? He's afraid of flying. It's not really a relevant detail to the rest of the story, but I think it is an important piece of characterization. I'll explain that later. But anyhow, he has landed in L.A. He is visiting his wife at this corporate office party that she's attending, right? They've just closed a big sale, and she's doing well in her field. And you can tell that this is sort of rubbing him the wrong way from this interaction he has with the limousine driver, Argyle, which, I mean, I love that character. I don't know about you, but he was just so fun. Yeah, he mentions, hey, like, why didn't you move out to L.A. with your wife? He says, well, I mean, it's really busy in New York, and I can't close all of these cases all at once, and it takes time. And then the limousine driver's like, oh, you just didn't believe that she would make it, right? He's like, pretty much. And so he meets with his wife. He sees her in her hotel room, I guess, or in a bathroom. And they're having a nice, cordial conversation. And she invites him to stay with her and their kids, right, for Christmas, I assume. And it's a very polite and very kind gesture, an outreached hand. But then in a moment of pettiness, he sort of barks at her. You didn't take my last name when you started working here. What's up with that? What, are you embarrassed of me? And then that spirals into a conflict. She leaves, and then he's hitting himself on the head. Meanwhile, terrorists infiltrate the building. They infiltrate the office party, and they start firing guns, right, taking hostages. And it's this really interesting moment where John McClane, he peeks out the door, and he sees the terrorists, and then he sees the exit. And what does this high-octane, action-packed hero do in this moment? He runs for the exit. And then from there, he starts like hatching up a plan, or he's trying to figure out what to do. And I would say that sort of summarizes that first act. Do you have any thoughts on that first act?
Yeah, I have a few. Just going off what you said. Man, Argyle did our man dirty. Imagine, you're a hardworking cop. There's a lot of weight on your shoulders, and now you gotta fly across the country to go see your wife, who like you're on the brink of divorce. A lot of stress. A lot of stress is riding. You get in this car with this like 17-year-old boy, and he starts heckling you. He's like, "What are you doing here?" And John McClane is basically he's like, "I don't want to talk about it." Very very matter of fact, like I do not want to talk about my life. And the boy's like, "What? What are you, a baby? Come on, don't be a baby. What are you doing here?" And then he's like, I'm here to see my wife. And he's like, "What? You're not here with your wife? What are you, a loser? Pathetic." It was just so funny. He kept like, you're the limousine driver. You're supposed to be professional. And he's like, yeah, tell me all your dirt so I can make fun of you. And that's not the case, because Argyle was actually a really cool guy who ended up, being good friends with John and saves the day a bit in the end. But I just thought that scene was so funny because they play it well. Like it's not like they're at each other's throats. Like John ends up, being very jovial and chill with Argyle, and Argyle has a very fun personality. But if you read it in a different context, it's basically Argyle being like, "I'm going to drag your personal life through the dirt. Tell me all your secrets right now." So I just thought that scene was really fun. Something that I really liked. I'm going to connect this to anime for 0.2 seconds, so forgive me. I love, 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 love Attack on Titan. I would love to do a little spin-off of The Holy Moment where we just review the whole series. So hey, if you want that, listeners, let us know. But the point of the story is I was showing with a friend years ago Attack on Titan, and she didn't end up liking it. She stopped watching it, and I was asking her the other day, like, "Hey, what's one of the reasons you stopped watching this?" And she gave some reasons, and then one of the like more minor details she gave that I thought was really interesting. She was like, "I was so uncomfortable how it always felt like it was golden hour all the time." So for those of you who don't know, golden hour used in photography and videography a lot of the times in the film world is just a specific time of day as the sun is setting. The sunlight is very perfect for filming, for photos. Everything looks really pretty. It's golden hour. Things start to look very orange and yellow and very bright. Or like not just bright, but like a very like nice faded look to everything. And she was just saying Attack on Titan, this TV show, golden hour, which is supposed to be very beautiful, they kind of flip on its head. And the show feels like purgatory. You never know what time of day it is, or you never know what day it is or how long they've been in this situation, but it always feels like golden hour. It always feels like dusk. The point I bring that up is I thought it was really interesting that they did the same thing in Die Hard. He gets off the airplane and the sun starts setting. And then we have these really cool, beautiful, like silhouette, like when there's a car driving in the distance, you have those heat waves and the sun is in the background. It's really bright, red, orange, saturated. And I just like this idea that he arrives at this skyscraper, this enormous building. There could be, I hypothetically fit like 1 million people in this building. I don't know. I don't know anything about skyscrapers. I'm from Iowa. But the point is, it's this massive building and he arrives there alone at dusk as the sun is setting. The city is like, feels like it's closing in on him. At the same time, he is alone. And maybe I was reading too much into it, but those shots of the sun going down were really provoking to me. And I thought they really set up this stage of this like cat and mouse game where you're technically trapped. So you're in an enclosed location, but at the same time, you have an entire skyscraper to yourself to work with. So it also feels like not a complex, a paradox in itself. You're trapped in a small location, but it's also huge. So I just really like that kind of feeling that they're able to provoke with the setting.
No, I agree 100%. And John McClane does feel like a trapped mouse. And I'll tell you why. Coming into this movie, I was thinking, well, this is a genre-defining action movie. I'm expecting this man to be the most badass individual on this here planet Earth. And he does some really cool things. But also, like, he's terrified, like 100% of the time. Right? He is flying by the seat of his pants. And he is constantly second-guessing his actions as he's doing them. And I find that so compelling. Because despite all these doubts, in spite of himself, he is doing the thing that needs to be done. I don't see him as some superhuman. I see him as an ordinary man who is choosing actively to do extraordinary things in spite of himself and in the face of incredible odds, incredible adversity. And I think that's why this is the difference between him and a lot of modern action heroes is I feel like in modern action movies, our protagonist will have a goal and nothing will keep him from that goal. And not only will nothing keep him from that goal, it feels like nothing could keep him from that goal. They're impervious to danger. nowadays. And it's really badass, but it also gets kind of boring, right? When you're seeing that 24/7 of this character, we want like chinks in the armor. And there are a lot of chinks in John McClane's armor. What are your thoughts on that?
I think you put it best. That I also this was actually my second time watching this movie. So I watched it 2 Christmases ago for the first time. My fiance's father is really into more action type movies, so he likes Die Hard. I think he very much would consider a Christmas movie, and I think they even watched it during the Christmas holiday growing up. So I watched it with them 2 Christmases ago, and I also knew that it was a really big deal, kind of genre defining, but I didn't know anything about it. And coming out of it, I understand why. And this connects to what you were just saying. I think it's two things, Jeffrey. It's stakes and it's setup and payoffs. This movie just did the basics correct. I don't personally think this movie necessarily is groundbreaking. I don't think this movie is like the craziest thing in the world. There are some cool set pieces, there's some good action, but what they did was they didn't let anything slip, but there wasn't anything unintentional. Every little thing had a setup, even if it was really insignificant and just really small. Everything had stakes. What I think this movie did, I want to compare this really quick. Funny enough, 2 Christmases ago, we watched Die Hard. This past Christmas, we watched Carry On. Do you know about Carry On?
No.
It came out this past Christmas on Netflix. It's just a ripoff Die Hard. Long story short, it's Christmas. There's a security guard, TSA security guard, who's kind of a loser. Terrorists come through and they get trapped in the airport, and it's a game of cat and mouse. Same premise. I actually didn't hate it. Didn't hate it. Wasn't great. Was horror. It was fine. It was fine. But what made the movie different? I'm sure there's a lot of things we could point to, but the big thing was it was stakes. At every moment, what I love about Die Hard, at every moment, there is shifting dynamics. So something we learn about a lot in film school is, when does the change happen in a scene? The change could be physical. Maybe at the beginning of the scene, someone is alive and then they die. Someone can walk and now they can't walk. Someone is fine and now they're sick. The change could be emotional. You show up to your birthday party and you're happy. Oh no, your ex-boyfriend showed up. Now you're pissed off. There needs to be a change. There needs to be something that gives and takes. You need to go from positive to negative or negative to positive. And this movie is constantly doing that in really creative ways. That's another thing, because you can't just have stakes. Like Jeffrey said, if you have stakes, but Captain America, is going to prevail no matter. He's going to punch the Hitler. He's going to punch the bad guy. He's going to punch the super god person in the face. No big deal. Then those aren't really stakes. Yeah, I'm not bashing on all the MCU. They've done some really good work. But if your superhero is going to prevail at the end of the day, the stakes aren't great. So what I love about Die Hard is there's always stakes. They were always changing of who had the upper hand. And they did it in unique ways. They did it in ways that it's like you're just in a building. There's nowhere to go. How much change can you interject into the story? But they found ways to do it in spades that I really felt like made this movie just fire on all cylinders, really solid. It just felt like a really solid, well-crafted brick. Was it the most beautiful thing? Maybe not, but was it just solid? Yes.
I think it's a very tight script, right?
Oh,
I
yeah.
feel like there wasn't much in it that didn't need to be there. And exactly, I mean, I think the sense of stakes is made all the more clear to us by Bruce Willis, John McClane, being gradually more and more beat up as the film goes on, right? Shout out to the costume team. Shout out to the makeup design team, because they make this man look on the brink of death by the end of the film.
And can I just interject for a moment? I want to give an example, because I think sometimes I can be guilty of saying really generic things, and I want to get better at saying this general thing, but then giving an example from the movie. So the example I want to give, so when I'm talking about changes in scenes, like I said, you have to go from one thing to another, and there can be multiple changes in a scene. The thing that jumps out to me right away is the scene in the third act where Hans he's going to check on the bombs, and because the plan's kind of going awry, it's getting to the last minute, he has to make sure these bombs go off. So he goes down, or goes wherever the boiler room is, wherever the bombs are, and he's there. And then John finds him. So the beginning of the scene kind of starts with Hans in power. He's the one proactively doing something. Okay, he sets his gun down. All of a sudden, he's discovered by John. Okay, it shifts now. He doesn't have a gun, and he's super sketchy. Why is this guy, like, all the hostages are held up on the top floor? Why is this guy just traipsing around? He's probably a terrorist. Boom. The scene, there's a change. There's a shift in power. John has all the power now. He's like, who the heck are you? But then Hans, he gets his Oscar. He plays it up. He's like, oh no, I escaped. I'm just a poor little dude. In my opinion, it was so unconvincing. John should have shot him in the face right then. But the point of the story is he plays it up. He's like, no, they were beating me. I escaped. I'm not a bad guy. I promise. And then so now they're kind of neutral. We went from, maybe positive, negative to negative. They're at a neutral moment. And then John's character trusts him. He's like, here's a gun. Okay, the character, the change, the stakes shift again. All of a sudden, Hans has the power again. And then it's revealed, I didn't trust you from the beginning. I gave you an empty gun. Shifts back to John. So it's these shifts of power and dynamic and stakes and change happening in scenes, so much back and forth, that really worked for me. So there's a very explicit example of what I mean by they did a good job of constantly changing who had the power and the dynamic within scenes.
No, I mean, that's a great example, and it was a great scene. And I think that it speaks to the effectiveness of both John McClane as the protagonist and Hans Gruber as the villain. They're so entertaining to watch. It's like a brilliant game of chess, right? Each move is calculated. Each move bears fruit. And we don't know who's going to come out on top at the end. Yeah, I mean, let's talk about the actors here. Bruce Willis as John McClane and Alan Rickman as Hans. Do you have any specific thoughts on them?
Yes, on them, I have thoughts on how they handled the characters in general, and I can use them as examples specifically. Another thing this movie did beautifully was they gave just enough story / stakes to everyone. I was so impressed. Everyone had stakes in character development. Even the freaking random news like anchor. What was he doing? But they gave a very, very formulaic, I don't use that as a negative sense, but a very formulaic standard. Everyone gets kind of one thing they're doing, and then throughout the movie they kind of need to achieve it or not achieve it. And they just, again, it's so solid in the storytelling, because I feel like so often in movies nowadays you get like a bunch of characters thrown in there. They have no character development. They're just background characters, even though they really should be like kind of like secondary protagonists. They should have more character development. And I think this movie proves something, Jeffrey. There's so many movies out there. Not every movie needs to do the same thing. We're not here at the Holy Moment Podcast painting a broad stroke of these movies do it correct, so that means these movies do it wrong. But what I think this movie does prove, audiences desperately want their characters to be going through something, to have something meaningful happen to them. But also I think what it proves is it doesn't have to be that deep. I love more artsy films, something that really digs into humanity and tries to portray emotion and what it means to be a human being as raw as possible. I think those movies can be great. Die Hard is not that. It is not digging that deep. It's going pretty surface level. But guess what? I think it's a blockbuster, genre-defining movie, not just because of the action, but because they decided to take a minute and be like, hey. This isn't like a drama romance. But should we maybe give our characters something to give a shit about? Should we maybe give our characters something to be like fighting for? And with John, the very simple story is his marriage is on the rocks. He didn't believe in his wife's career. He got afraid that maybe she would outshine him, an insecurity. And that is enough to propel his character to fight tooth and nail to the end of this journey. And for Hans, we get the idea that he is kind of money hungry and manipulative and thinks he is smarter than most people. So we get this idea of a very egotistical person who is trying to prove I love, one of my favorite things is like how Hans is always trying to be in control of like the environment. Yes, I'm a mastermind terrorist. I'm control. Nothing's going to go awry. And then John just keeps throwing wrenches constantly into his plan. And you just see Hans trying to like keep his cool. Like, it's fine. I'm so smart. This isn't a big deal. And just him always on the brink of a breakdown. And I think you could ask almost any character from the most main to the most minor. They had just like the smallest bit of a story. I want this, so I'm going to do this to get it. And there was just an arc for everyone, and it made it made the action more compelling. Not only did they have stakes of like, oh no, I might die. There was like emotional stakes. Again, not the most like deep, but there was still something to sink our teeth into when it comes to the characters.
Absolutely. I think that a common thread that I noticed between all of their arcs that speaks to perhaps a broader theme, that I don't know if this was intentional, but this is something that I noticed. You notice how many incompetent people there are in this movie that really just mess things up for our main characters?
Literally, pretty much everyone besides John himself.
So there's, I would say our quote unquote protagonists are John McClane, Sergeant Al, Holly, Guerrero, maybe Argyle on a lesser plane, right? And these people are more or less ordinary people. That might be a hard sell because John McClane does extraordinary things, right? But again, he does not want to be here. He's not like itching to kill the bad guys. He's trying to get the cops' attention. And as soon as he thinks that the cops are on their way, he takes a break. He sits down. He's like waiting for them to do something. But then when they come, they mess things up. And now he's spurred to action again. He's like, I have to fix this. And you see that with all these characters, right? They're more or less ordinary people who, in spite of themselves, do extraordinary things in the face of adversity, right? And adversity doesn't come only from Hans Gruber and his henchmen. It comes from the incompetent LAPD, right? It comes from the news media that's careless with the information that they broadcast. It comes from the FBI and the people that aren't willing to listen to the guy in the building, their guy in the building. These people are just messing it up for others, and it takes someone, anyone, to just like take a stand against them and say, hey, like, something has to be done. Al isn't jacked, right? He isn't your stereotypical action hero, but he speaks up against his deputy chief when his deputy chief is being stupid. Argyle's just a limousine driver, but he runs into that hacker dude, and they're all making decisions like this.
I love something that was probably one of my favorite parts of the whole movie, especially on a rewatch. It was really fun to just like be on the watch for. Going on with this concept of like maybe not like especially with today's day and age, hero movies. John McClane is not your typical hero guy, and what we love about him not being a hero guy is he is so angry that he's in this scenario. Like yeah, like Jeffrey was saying earlier, you could tell that he's scared. Like he's not like nothing scares me. Like he's scared, but more than scared, he's angry. And I think it's like anger. He's expressing like being afraid through anger, but he is running around. So I've never seen someone so angry that he's getting shot at. I think it's hilarious. Instead of like breaking down crying or being like, I'm so badass, I don't even care I'm getting shot at. He's like, why the frick are you shooting at me? I'm like, can you imagine? Like if you got shot at, you're gonna respond a few ways. I feel like you could break down, be terrified. You could run away. You could stand up and fight. But I feel like part of you, it's when control. I think this is like an actual thing in psychology. When control is taken away from you. When, you know, if your house gets broken into and someone there and beats you and does horrible things, I feel like it's the fear that control is taken away from you. And that's what makes you angry. And I love watching John McClane's character run around being so pissed off all the time at everyone because everyone was so incompetent. Granted, like you said, Jeffrey, people, that's what I love. You know, they're willing to do things. They're willing to get their hands dirty, even if it doesn't always work out. So it makes sense with their level of incompetence. But he is just like, God's like, I am on your side. Why is the FBI shooting at me? Why is the LAPD shooting at me? Why is no one listening to me? Why is this douchebag party goer giving them information about my family? Like, I don't want to be the hero, but I will if you guys just stop making me fight you. I think by the end of the movie, it's almost like, man, John McClane's not fighting the terrorists. He's fighting everyone else in the building and outside of the building by himself.
No, I mean, I agree. I mean, Al's doing the same out there, you know?
Oh, Al.
He's just like a police sergeant, right? That no one takes seriously, but he has the most level head out of all of the officers out there. You see that one officer that they're running through the bush and he gets like hurt with the thorny rose bush?
Yeah. It was such a weird add-on. Yeah, like it doesn't. I will say they do a lot of setups and payoffs. That doesn't pay off, and he just ran by a bush and was like, "Ow! A thorn scraped me," and I'm in full like armor gear. It was so weird.
No, I think that's speaking to the incompetence of the LAPD there. I think that was intentionally put there to show, hey, like these people don't know what they're doing. They're morons essentially.
It's funny because a lot of people were like blasting Carry On, the movie I talked about earlier, about being like cop propaganda because it's very much like, go cops. I'm not here or there. I didn't feel like it was that much. But I feel like this movie is almost opposite of cop propaganda. It's like, dude, the cops suck. What are they doing? Come on, try a
It's
little
like
harder.
he's telling them that the building has been taken over by terrorists and there's gunshots, and the lady's like, "This is an emergency line, sir.
Or
If
or
you have an
when
emergency, call 911 on your cell phone."
yeah, or when Al is like arguing with his chief because all the cops have showed up. SWAT, everyone's there. They're trying to figure out what's going on, and the idiot like cop who's in charge till the FBI shows up, he's reprimanding Al. He's like, maybe there's no terrorists in there. We haven't heard any demands. Maybe it's just one lunatic. It's kind of an understandable thing. I don't know if that's what I would say, but I get where he's coming from. And then Al responds, well, what about the dead body? For context, Al shows up by himself. Basically, John McClane gets like an emergency call out, and the emergency call people send good old Al, hey, go check this out. Al shows up. Everything's quiet. Everything's peaceful. He goes in. He talks to the guard who's secretly a terrorist. And he's like, yeah, everything checks out. I'm going to go eat my Twinkies. Bye-bye. And he's leaving. And John McClane is like, what the frick, dude? So he throws out a dead terrorist body onto Al's car. And then, so fast forward to what I was talking about. Al is like, well, what about the body that got thrown out? And you know what the cop's response is? It's probably some depressed businessman who decided to kill himself. And I just don't think that's the logic a cop should use. And also, couldn't you go look at the body? Couldn't you go look and see that like it has guns on him and like grenades and stuff? So it was out of everyone, I think out of everyone in that film, the most incompetent person was that chief of police. He just like the lapse in judgment he made were astonishing.
Oh, for sure. And this might not be incompetence, but it's definitely shockingly careless, is the news media going to John McClane's family and, interviewing his kids.
And you know how they get in the house? He threatens the lady with deportation. A little too close to home nowadays, but like, yeah, they show up and it's the nanny at home with the kids, and the news guy's there with a bunch of people. It's like, back off. I'll talk to her one-on-one. And he leans in and he's like, listen here, I will send you back to Mexico if you don't let me in. And then she lets him in, and that was crazy.
Oh, it's so crazy. I mean, like, there's so many forces that are working against our heroes, right? And they're choosing to push through anyhow. Like, and with each new obstacle, they're frustrated, they're angry, they don't want to be here, but they take that step forward. And I think that that's a really cool. I think that's a theme that perhaps we don't speak about enough.
No, yeah. Just keep stepping forward like John McClane did on Glass without shoes. Yeah, I want to do. We're talking about him. Al is so weird. I don't think this movie. It's fine acting. It's not amazing. It's not horror. I thought it was good. It did what it needed to do. I'm not going to like praise it for its acting. They had a lot of cheese in this movie. They had a lot of campiness. But every time they cut to Al leaning on his cop cars, going, ugh, can you get a load of this? And he would almost like look at the kid. It was so weird. It was like it was in a sitcom. John would be running through the building like, this is horrible. They got missile launchers. Cut to Al. You say they got missile launchers? Ain't that crazy? Looks at camera. It was his snark was so funny.
Yeah, but I love their relationship. I love Al. This film would be so much worse without him, I think. And at the end, when they meet face to face, I thought that was a lovely moment.
Yeah, it was very sweet. I do appreciate him, and even Al, he gets his little character arc. They did a good job. Again, it really impressed me that you don't need a lot with character arcs. Al is a fat, overweight cop who's behind a desk, and basically we just find out he accidentally shot. I don't know if they said he killed, but he shot a 13-year-old kid by accident, and it really messed with Al's mind. So he basically I'll just be a desk junkie. And then at the end of the movie, Al saves the day and kills the last terrorist. So you get like his really mini arc. And again, it's really only set up in one scene and paid off in one scene. But it just goes to show like how far that goes of just giving like a little bit of character development.
Absolutely. No. And again, it speaks to that idea of overcoming in spite of yourself. Because he didn't want to do that, but it had to be done, and no one else is doing it. And so he stands up and he shoots the guy. Okay, what do you think of this movie's depiction of masculinity in John McClane?
Oh, I'm going to answer that question a little bit roundabout because I was thinking before I started the podcast, I was just trying to think about my thoughts, and a thought that came to me was, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 episodes ago, we were kind of joking a lot that we were watching a lot of older films. We were watching Groundhog Day, On the Waterfront, The 12 Angry Men, and just a few other older movies. And Jeffrey and I were both noticed the theme of like, hey, they do a horrible job at portraying women. It's really bad. I'm not saying this movie got it perfect, but I thought they did a really good job with this movie. Holly, the wife to John McClane, at the end of the day, she does need a man to save her. She is, but understandably, she's captured by terrorists, and she needs someone to come save her. And her husband's a cop. Makes sense, like why he can save her and she can't save herself. She's surrounded by guys with guns. But she did not falter. I like that she. What I have an issue with some feminists, like more portrayed type characters nowadays, is they have this feeling of like begrudging. They don't want any man's help. They don't need any man's help. They can do everything themselves. And it feels unreal. It just personally feels unrealistic. Men need other men's help. Men need women's help. Women need women's help. And they just need, everyone needs someone in their life to help each other out, regardless of sex. So it feels a little weird that movies maybe nowadays, like women can do everything by themselves. It's like, I don't like, no, they can't. I can't do everything by myself. Like I need people in my life to help me out, including women. But the point of the story is, I thought she was a really well-rounded character. She selfishly kind of pursued a job over her husband, but it also has this duality of showing like she's really good at what she does, and like it does a good job of showing both sides. It's like she is a smart, intellectual, powerful woman that can go get a job and basically be the second in command of this multi-billion-dollar company. Well, that's great. That's a good thing. But she also kind of left her husband. And I'm not saying he handled the situation perfectly, but she kind of left her husband in the dirt while doing so. So there's pros and cons to this. But at the end of the day, in the whole terror situation, she needed to be saved by a man or just by a person. But she also was kind of like the voice for all the hostages. She was the one that like, hey, we have a pregnant woman. Can we get her a sofa? Hey, we need to go on bathroom breaks. So she was very brave in all of it. So all that to be said, I thought they handled the really one female in the whole movie well. But now to actually answer your question, how do I feel like they handled masculinity?
I mean, here's one thing. Before you begin, I think it is an interesting thing with her moving to L.A. Maybe there was some selfishness there, but I also think that part of John McClane's arc is recognizing how he was selfish himself, right, and not
100%.
supporting her, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And in fact, we hear multiple times throughout the movie, Holly's wanting him to come to L.A. to spend time with her and her kids, right? And it seems that he just hasn't been, right? And I think that conversation with Argyle in the limousine at the beginning, perhaps Argyle was heckling him, and perhaps he was, in part, just trying to move past that part of the conversation. I think that he was admitting something when he agreed with Argyle, and that like he just didn't believe that it would go anywhere, and he had just assumed that she would come back to him, and he felt that it was more work than it was worth. And so I think it's definitely a complicated situation.
I fully agree with you. I'm not trying to paint it black or white, like, oh, she was selfish and went and got a job, or no. I think they're both to blame, and arguably John McClane probably more, because it's very clear that it wasn't like their marriage was perfect and she got offered this job. I think it was obvious that he didn't support her, and he wanted her to kind of he wanted her to do what he viewed as a wife, and didn't love her and nurture her in the ways that she needed it. So 100%. I'm not being like women shouldn't work and she left him. No. I think he was probably a bad husband and also drove her away. But I was just saying, like, there is that duality of it wasn't like, oh, I'm a big strong woman that doesn't need a man, I'm going to go get this big paying job. But it also wasn't like I'm a dependent woman that has to stay at home and be a mother. I felt like she was in the workforce. She was smart. She was cunning. She was strong. But at the end of the day, she cared the most about her family. That's probably what it is. Women in movies aren't always portrayed about caring about families. She was a strong businesswoman. She was intellectual. She was cunning. She did all the right things in the movie. But at the end of the day, she was very clearly cared the most about her family. That was the most important thing to her. And I think that's what made her character understandable and believable and enjoyable almost.
She was highly competent and feminine, which there's nothing wrong with women that are more like masculine, right? But I think that sometimes there is this sense that femininity is wrong or weak. And I just think that that's the exact opposite of what feminism should be.
No, I agree. And I apologize. Maybe to the feminists out there, this is the exact issue with guys. You asked, what did you think of the masculinity? And I said, let me tell you about the feminist in this movie. So I just, the reason why it was on my mind, because I ultimately, hear me out, I liked her character. I thought they did her character well. And it was a very balanced character of being independent, but also needing people and loving her family. That's what I'll say about her character. The masculinity of John McCain. I thought it was fine. I appreciated, like we kind of said earlier, that he is a strong man that's going to take action, but he's not afraid to be afraid. But also, like I was talking about earlier, how anger comes out of fear sometimes. I think men who are less in touch with their emotions, with gosh, what does that phrase even mean nowadays? But men who are a little more unwilling to dig deep into themselves and do self-reflection. I think those are the men that react in anger. Granted, when you're in a terror situation being shot at, I'm not saying, I need to sit and reflect in this moment. What does it mean to be shot at? What does this make me feel? Obviously, that's not what you do in that scenario. But I do think it is true that men that men that fall back on anger when they're afraid often are usually more unhealthy type of men. But I do think ultimately the movie portrayed masculinity in a good way, because at the end of the day, John's character arc was learning how to trust and not be in control of a situation and to love his wife well. He wanted to be, I feel like the story I got was he wanted to kind of be in control back at home. He wanted to be in charge. He didn't believe that she could do it. He didn't support her. And then by the end of the movie, he supports her. He loves her. I think he loved her the whole time, but he can love her how she needs to be loved and vice versa.
Yeah, it's that amazing line where he's like, I've told her a million times that I love her. This is the first time that I've said I'm sorry.
Yeah. That's a great line. I think that encompasses kind of the masculinity in this movie. Like, it's good to be a strong, independent man, a man that your family can lean on and support on. But if that's all you are, if all you are is, well, I provide the money, I take care of the family, that's great. But also, I think you have to be responsible as a man to take care of their emotional needs, their spiritual needs. Like, it's not just about the physical needs that sometimes men can get so caught up in. We got to make sure our wives and significant others are doing okay. We have to ask how they're doing. We have to listen. We have to say we're sorry. So I do feel like it did a pretty good job with it.
I agreed. I think, his arc was in large part just learning how to own up to his issues, which, I feel like he's very aware of his issues from the beginning. Over the course of the movie, he comes to understand, like, this is how I should deal with them. I'm going to act to better myself, right? Because in the beginning, after that spat with her in the bathroom, she leaves and he's like, stupid John, like, why did you say that? I feel like that mirrors a lot of our experiences where we know what's wrong with us, but we keep on doing the same things over and over again. We're like, stupid, why are we doing this? And then sometimes it takes something drastic for us to see, okay, like, this really needs to be my priority, and I'm going to pull the trigger.
What I love about their arguments, their conflict, it's so real. There isn't I'm going to struggle to express this thought. There wasn't a correct person in the argument. I think they were both at fault. They both were selfish, and they both weren't asking for forgiveness or saying, I'm sorry. But you could see it from both directions. Yes, he barked at her. She, they were in the bathroom at the beginning of the movie, and she's like, hey, me and the kids would love to have you at the house. You would think, oh, she's opening the door. This is good. They're going to make progress. And he immediately barks at her and says, I can't remember the phrase or what she said to tick him off, but he kind of goes on this tirade of like, you're my wife. You left me. This shouldn't have been an issue in the first place. And you could look at it and be like, wow, what a dick move. She was extending an olive branch. But you could see it was out of pain. And the pain he was feeling was valid. Like, again, I'm not saying he was a good husband before the movie and that the reason she left wasn't somewhat valid. But ultimately, it sounds like they left on like they're on the brink of divorce. If your wife just gets up and leaves, again, even if it's partially your fault, it's going to hurt. You're going to feel rejected. So I really love that these arguments were on both ends. It wasn't just one person who was a white knight of like, well, you really screwed up. Come grovel back to me. They both were in the gray. They both were broken, hurting people. And by the end of the movie, You could see some of the I don't know, healing. How much healing could you go through when, terrorists are trying to get you? But by the end of the movie, she agrees to take his last name. That was like a whole thing where she left for New York and she went back to her maiden name. But by the end, it wasn't like he accepted, you know what, you're an independent woman. You have your own last name. She was like, no, you're a man I can love and respect. I want to be part of the family again. Your last name is my last name. And so all that to be said was the arguments and the issues on both sides were just that they were on both sides. It wasn't a one-sided issue, which I really liked.
No, absolutely. I mean, they both had those conversations before, but they had never resolved them satisfactorily. And that's like where they're both in the wrong for not sticking by each other to have those conversations before making big life-changing decisions.
Not the conversation I thought we would have, the masculinity and femininity of Die Hard, but I think it's good. I mean, I think probably plenty of people have talked about the other things that we'll probably get into, like the action, but those are good. Those are good questions.
Good. I mean, I've been ruminating on that, and I knew that I'd ask you that question. But yeah, so I know I keep bringing this up, but this idea that ordinary people doing extraordinary things, does that idea resonate with you? Do you see that in this movie?
I see it in John. And you know what? I think it's highlighted because specifically of the FBI. So later in the third act, policemen show up, SWAT shows up, then finally the FBI shows up and they're handling it. I think the FBI come in as this really suave, cool, we're going to handle everything. They don't feel like the ordinary man. They feel extraordinary. They feel like they're going to snap their fingers and they're going to be the most badass people and they're going to fix. They feel like the more stereotypical. Nothing could stop them. They're going to be able to save the day. And then when you find out that they're kind of pompous dicks and they end up dying, I feel like it only highlights more the idea of the simple individual, the individual who is not special, but is pushing past their limits. And I think that's most seen in John, to be completely honest with you, because again, most of our other characters were completely inept. As much as I loved Al, yeah, he killed the terrorists at the end, but Al was just like a comedy relief guy. He was there so John didn't have to be a room and alone narrating everything. Not to say that. No, I think his character served more of a purpose. I think his character was very integral. But to the point of, did it feel like ordinary people pushing past their limits? Going and doing extraordinary things because that is what the situation calls for. And I would say the FBI's being these over-the-top individuals highlights John being an individual, a normal guy pushing past his limits. And then maybe Holly's character a little bit. Again, she's just a normal businesswoman, but she rises to the occasion to try and take care of the hostage as much as she can. But besides that, I don't feel like I mean, I guess you kind of do. Because like at the end of the day, I said everyone has a character arc. Al, even though he's kind of goofy and dumb, he rises, he's afraid, he doesn't want to use his weapon, he killed or hurt a child. He rises to the occasion and he kills a terrorist. So yeah, I guess thinking about it, yes, everyone is a pretty simple individual who rises to the occasion. Yeah, I would say that theme is pretty evident.
Yeah, I think that more what I mean is, it's less about like, oh, I'm improving myself and more about showing courage. It's like Al, I think what makes him special is that he has the courage to speak up against his boss, right? And Holly has courage to walk over to Hans Gruber and speak in behalf of the pregnant woman. I think that Argyle is showing courage in choosing to run his limousine into the hacker dude. And so all of these are extraordinary in their own ways, even if they're not quite as explosive as John McClane showing courage and doing the right thing in the moment. I think that's more what I see, even in characters like Sergeant Al, right? He's still being John McClane's man on the other side against the opposition of his immediate superiors, right? His livelihood and his job is threatened by the deputy chief, but he stands his ground. And they're just small moments like this.
Yeah. Now that you redefine it as courage, I would agree with you. One of the moments that kind of proves your point that I really like that I want to talk about for a sec is Nakasodi. What was the name of the business? In something. Nagasaki. Anyway, the point is the Asian guy that runs the $1 billion business. So when the terrorists first show up, they're like, where is this man? And a little funny thing is the main terrorist is rattling off scary personal information. you graduated this day, you married this person, you moved to this person, this was your first business, this was your blah, blah, blah. He's rattling off all this personal information and he's looking for the owner in the crowd. How do you know all this personal information and you don't have a picture of this guy? That feels silly, but I digress. So he he's threatening of shooting people. He's really menacing. And the wife, Holly, holds back the president, the Asian guy, from like, well, don't reveal yourself, you'll get hurt. But finally the president is like, I've had enough. Stop threatening my employees. I'm in charge. So it took courage in that moment for him to stand up. And also, I really liked the Asian guy. This day and age, capitalism, being a billionaire, bad, blah, blah, blah. I'm not saying he was perfect. You probably don't become a billionaire and make all of the right decisions, but they really portrayed him as like a hardworking Japanese guy who cares for his employees. Like, again, this movie starts with this party. There are people doing cocaine. There are people trying to have affairs. There's people having sex in offices. You get the idea that, oh, maybe Holly left the cute life of a wife to come to this horrible, sinister business. But then at the day, we actually find out the Asian boss is a good guy. He cares about his employees. He cares about his business. He cares about being a philanthropist. And so I really liked his character, even though he was only around for like 5 minutes before he got his head blown off. But I just, another example of like, sometimes the audience just wants good people to root for. Again, we were talking about in an earlier episode how films often can show the direction of a country. And I'm not saying they're going to tell us the morals of a country, but they often can tell what a country's going through. And I think with movies getting more self-centered and sometimes focusing on darker stories and not always having good characters, not always having a peaceful ending, I like those type of movies. But I did watch this movie and realize I do miss a movie where it's like, that's just a good guy. He's just a good dude. And I like just a good dude.
Oh, I agreed. I think it's super refreshing. It's one of the reasons why I'm looking forward to the James Gunn Superman movie, though I'm also just a huge nerd.
Yeah. We have to go watch it together.
Yeah, I would love that.
I do want to watch it, yeah.
I mean, hey, I'll be probably seeing it at the Mall of Georgia on release day with my girlfriend and her family, but I'd watch it a second time with you as well.
Yeah, let me know. And you just dox yourself, Jeffrey. They're going to show up on our ravaging fans are going to show up on release day.
Watch it with us. Watch it. And we'll discuss it.
We'll discuss it live.
This is the Holy Moment podcast where we watch movies with you, and discuss the moments that work, the moments that don't, and the moments that elevate cinema. Come on. If it takes doxing my location, then I will dox, and I'll rope you into it too, Nathaniel. I'll dox all day, every day, 24/7.
Just because you say my address live doesn't mean you roped me into it. It means you illegally gave away my address. No, I like the idea of next week, we're just in the middle of recording the episode, and then some dude just opens your closet and gets in there with you. And it's like, hey, I'm here to discuss the episode.
I would welcome.
The closet's pretty small, Jeffrey. It's a little gay.
It is pretty cramped, yeah. Cozy is how I like to call it.
That's fair. You know what wasn't gay?
Tell me, what wasn't gay?
This movie. This movie was not gay. Very manly.
Very heterosexual.
Very heterosexual. Lots of guys being shot at and lots of women being kissed by men. Straight movie.
I don't know. Half naked, sweaty man.
Grappling each other. You know Al and John were like, oh, but what if? No. I don't know if I've ever seen a straighter man than John McClane. McCain. It's a McCain? McClean?
So it's John McClane. John McCain is
a
former U.S. senator who ran for president against Barack Obama in 2008.
I swear John McClane is also someone.
That is true.
I don't know.
John McClane is American Pie Man.
Yeah, that's what he's from. And this is John.
Or is it Don McClane? I think it's Don McClane.
Don McClane. It's Don McClane. Don. It's like the same thing. Point of the story is too many McCleans, McClanes, McCardys. Get original last names, guys. Like Jeffrey Nichols, who can be found at insert his address.
I like that you're like, Irish people, I hate them. Let's get rid of them.
No,
MacArthur,
I'm just saying
McDonald, McClane.
Just have more different last names that don't sound so similar. That's all I'm saying.
Sure.
I'm not racist. I'm dyslexic and have a hard time saying names. There's a difference, I swear.
I'd started by giving a synopsis of Act 1. We've sort of dipped our toes in several different acts. I think we can just talk.
Do
about
not tell me where my toes have been. They have been right here in my house, Jeffrey. Not dipping them anywhere.
So you think? Okay. You know that thing that prank
It's
that people would do
horrifying.
as kids, like you put your fingers in warm water, or you put someone's.
So you piss
like,
yourself.
Fingers, yeah. Would that work with toes?
You get some liquid coming out of something.
Okay. All right. Moving on.
You're the one threatening me, saying you're coming in my house, putting my toes in liquids. I'm not the weird one in this scenario. You are. This is why I don't dox my address. Jeffrey doesn't know where I live.
Maybe we can both take some responsibility here.
No, I'm not. I don't have character growth like John. It's your fault. You're the problem. But yeah, we can dive into whatever you want to talk about.
So camera movement. I really appreciated the camera movement in this movie. I'm not a cinematographer, so perhaps I can't speak to it with much knowledge or insight, but an example would be that opening shot, right, of the hand gripping the seat rail on the plane, and then it moves up, not to John McClane's face, but to that random, passenger, which I thought was really funny because the hand, the shots on the hand, and then we see the words Bruce Willis, and then the camera pans up, and it's just not Bruce Willis.
Yeah, I did enjoy the camera movement. I thought it was necessary, wouldn't need to be there, but it wasn't overbearing. I thought it blended in well. And something that I really liked about the moment that I was like, hey, I like that camera movement, because I move the camera. It's good. It's part of cinema. I'm not being a snob of like, well, actual art is black and white with no sound and the camera doesn't move at all. That's art. No. Movement is great. But I do traditionally like more static shots and more just classic pan and tilts than kind of being on an easy rig. But you know what they did do with the camera moving around a lot that I really appreciated? Very simple. They would always push in, pan, move, tilt to get the actor's face. I feel like, I know that sounds really obvious and plain, but they don't do that in movies all the time. The face is like 90% of the emotion of the human body. Yeah, you get a lot of body language below the face, but like the face says it all. And sometimes it's so hard to make out what someone's thinking because we're not doing a good job with composition showing the face. But I really appreciated, again, this isn't the most like deep emotional movie, but in the moments that they needed emotions to land, they would make sure the camera pushed in, tilted, like it got onto the character's face, which I appreciated.
Oh, 100%. And as someone who's acted in several short films, I can tell you that sometimes you're doing a very emotional scene, and then you see the final edit, and the camera's just so far from the action that it does the performances a disservice. And I cannot stress enough the importance of the close-up, the magic of the close-up. The eyes are the windows to the soul, people. Try capturing that, and I think this movie does that.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, so I don't have too much to say about the cinematography. I did think, you know what I like about this movie? This movie at the beginning, I don't want to say low budget, because from the very beginning, they're in a skyscraper. You know, how many small movie productions can get a whole skyscraper? But at first, it's a little bit tame. But I do love by the end, it's like, oh, okay, this was a lot of money. Buildings exploding, helicopters exploding, skyscrapers falling down. But there was a really cool shot of the helicopters going really low in between the skyscrapers, right above the highway. And I've just never really seen that in a movie before. Like I've seen helicopters in cities, but like they were like swerving in and out of buildings. I thought that was a really cool shot.
Yeah, really cool shot that stood out to me is when he's trying to escape the elevator shaft, and there's that massive ventilation shaft, and he's trying to grab onto one of the holes so that he can crawl through it. But he misses that first one. He falls and he grabs onto the next. That was a mistake on the stunt guy's part that ended up looking cooler than their original idea. He was supposed to make it, but he didn't.
Wow.
And so now it just looks
insane.
like he cut that second one. Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder what like how much green screen or I wonder what like that scene looked like when he was in that elevator shaft making that jump. Was it a huge shaft? Was he just like on harnesses? Yeah, that's no thank you.
It must have been harnesses. I don't think they had green screen technology back then.
I don't think they had harnesses back then either. Yeah, I think he just would have died. I think they just had a lot of stuntmen.
Or maybe they did something where they'd painted the like maybe they'd painted on shadows, like in old formalistic. There's some sort of illusion that can be made, I'm sure.
Yeah, I like the idea that they had like 30 stuntmen, and if you die, you die. Because, harnesses, a technology only for the 21st century, truly. I just watched Fall Guy like 2 weekends ago with no one besides Christopher Vega, an old host of the podcast. But that just made me have more respect for stuntmen. So just you talking about that stunt. Yeah, I wonder how much of this movie Bruce Willis did versus a stunt performer. Because there's so much running around, being shot at, jumping, sliding. So it would be so cool to know the percentages. Like, was Bruce Willis like in like 30% of this movie?
Yeah, that would be an interesting thing to look into and to study. I will say, the iconic line, Yippee-ki-yay, MFer, right?
Yeah.
That we hear in our intro every week. I'd never, seen the movie. I'd never encountered that line. And it was such a surprise because I wasn't expecting it. I didn't know what movie that came from. Bruce Willis, I learned, didn't think that moment would get into the actual cut, the final cut.
I can imagine being handed a line like that and be like, this is a little goofy. No way this makes the final cut. I also, a feature film I acted in, oh gosh, there was a line that I read and I was like, why am I saying this? There's no way this makes it into the final edit of the movie. And I cannot, what was it? It was funny because there was an inside joke, like all the other actors and like just like all of like everyone I knew on crew, we all were like, love the director, you've done a great job. What is this line? And I cannot remember for the life of me what it is. It was like gosh darn it, or just something really cheesy that no normal human being outside of a 1980s cartoon character would actually say, like G Willikers or something like that. But I digress.
There was a short film that I acted in, and same professor, and the script was written by a student, but it took place in the 80s, and I was playing one of the characters, right? And he asked me, just out of the blue, it wasn't in the script, if I could just yell, boom shakalaka.
Really?
Yeah, and it felt so weird. And I was like, I don't know if I can do this. It just doesn't feel natural, and I feel so silly saying it. It ended up working, but I think everyone on that set, they heard that line, it's like, boom shakalaka. I don't know. Even the guy that wrote the script was like, it worked. So you have to trust the vision sometimes.
That gives me that reminds me of another short film. Sorry not to get too off topic, guys, but I acted in a short film, and basically at the very end of the movie, my character gets killed. And I'm supposed to, in my last moment, exclaim, mommy. Kind of like, I was kind of like this Freudian character who had a weird complex and was really just pathetic. So I was supposed to be like, yell out mommy as in I'm just a pathetic dude that gets killed. I remember being like, this is never going to work. This is the weirdest horrible, like first and foremost, guys, I'm not an actor. I like doing it in college. It's like fun. I'll do it, but it's not like what I'm trying to do in real life. But I just remember being like, this is not going to work. It didn't work. It was horrible. It was like a horrible line. However, I'm so angry. I cannot remember the movie I watched, but I watched a movie sometime this past year and a half, and they did that. They had a character very similar, very pathetic, very groveling, gets killed. He gets shot. Very similar way. The last thing he says is he yells out mommy. The actor crushed it. I was like, oh my gosh, it can be done. Not by me, but it can be done. So props to whatever scene that was from and whoever that actor was, because they did a good job with it. But speaking of, not to take away your hosting, but did you feel like the performances in this movie were anything spectacular, or did they do what they needed to do?
I think that this is my favorite performance of Bruce Willis that I've seen. Now, I've seen The Sixth Sense, and I've seen Unbreakable. I love those films, and this isn't speaking on the quality of those films versus this film, but as far as roles that Bruce Willis has played, I feel like he was made for John McClane. I don't know, it felt like a real guy, right? Real New York cop, working man, blue collar sort of feel. And then Hans Gruber, played by Alan Rickman. This is his first movie role. I believe he had played in television shows and theater, but this is his first time on the silver screen. And I mean, I think he killed it. I think that he played the character with the right amount of smarminess and narcissism and cold calculation, right? He has such an elevated view of himself. And it's really ironic. It's really funny that one of the only lines that really rattles him and makes him lose his cool is when Holly calls him a common thief, and immediately he's put on edge, and he like grabs her, and he's like, "I'm no common thief. I am an extraordinary thief." But in most other circumstances, he's just as cool as a cucumber.
I really did. This was something the second rewatch did good for me. His performance was better because I do think the first time I watched it, he was kind of like a goofy, cheesy villain to me, almost like a Bond villain, kind of. But I think on the second rewatch, what we talked about earlier, and what you just talked about right there, I realized he is kind of an asinine character because he thinks of himself so highly, but he's starting to crack under pressure and he's trying to hold it all together. So actually, some of his over the top acting, because I think the first time I watched it, I was like, okay, maybe he's a little over the top and it's not really subtle. But I think the second rewatch and kind of understanding his character a little more of like, he's an egotistical guy who's trying to make it seem like he has everything under wraps. One of my favorite scenes I wrote in my notes was like, he's upstairs on the penthouse with all of the hostages. This is pretty early on, probably the very beginning of the second act. And he's like, okay, hostages, we have everything under control, blah, 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 we're so great. Ding, the elevator door opens, and then there's a dead body tied to a chair. And so just like at every moment he's trying to be suave, he's being like undercut by John. And I think his performance makes a lot more sense when you view it through that lens. So I definitely did enjoy him more this second time.
Yeah, no, that was a great scene also because of Bruce Willis's performance there. Because, yeah, John McClane, he does this really, really cool thing, really badass thing. And they're looking at this in awe and terror, right? Hans is like, how are we going to deal with this? Meanwhile, John McClane is on top of the elevator and he's sweating bullets, right? I just thought that was really funny because at this point, I mean, yeah, he's doing these things, but he still doesn't want to be there, right? He still recognizes that this is a terribly dangerous position that he's put himself in.
I would say that scene is kind of him in the story circle, him accepting he's finally begrudgingly accepting the challenge he's been given. I feel like he's finally in that scene. He's kind of like, okay, I killed one. We're doing this. I'm doing this at least till the police arrive.
Yeah.
And he does it. He kills 11 men. No, 10 men because Al kills one of them. And then one of them, the hacker guy, gets knocked out by Argyle. So he kills 10 terrorists that night. Oh, Chris, did you get it? Christmas, 12 terrorists.
Oh,
the 12 days of
12 days of Christmas.
This is a Christmas movie for sure, 100%.
It's all there for those with the eyes.
Yeah, if you don't have a big enough brain, of course you don't think this is a Christmas movie. Look a little harder. Stop being sheeple.
But yeah, no, I thought that the performances were really good. I thought that as comedy relief, and just as a character, Sergeant Al was very endearing. I appreciated that performance, even though it was perhaps cheesy at moments.
I thought it was good. There was just enough other cheesy moments that made it work. Just sometimes Bruce Willis's character was a little cheesy in what he decided to say and do, and then like how he like put on the Santa hat and wrote ho 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 on the dead body. So there was just enough cheese that Al's character worked. I will say, I think if they made it more cheesy, it would have undercut some of the really cool, suspenseful acting or action. And kind of how we said, the stakes really worked. If you had any more cheese, I don't think the stakes would have worked. I don't know why we're talking about food now, steak and cheese. But, like, if everything's funny, nothing can be serious. But thankfully, they walked the line pretty well. But every once in a while, Al was a little bit like, what are you doing, dude? What are you doing over there?
I remember seeing the henchman and the ho 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 written on his shirt. And again, that was a really cool moment, the message that he'd left. But that added ho ho ho. I just thought to myself, John McClane, he probably thought he was so funny.
Yeah. I appreciated that. A small, absolutely random note that has nothing to do with anything. While watching the movie, and like towards the end of the third act, when John McClane is lifting himself up, looking over the rafters, and sees the whole pile of C4, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, they're gonna blow the roof off." I've always been interested. Like, C4 as a concept is just interesting, like a plastic explosive, and I'm always curious in movies. Sometimes like a little amount of it will explode like a whole room. And sometimes it doesn't do a bit of explosion. I know it's movie magic, it's not one for one. But I was curious. So while watching the movie, I asked ChatGPT, I was like, how much C4 does it take to explode the roof of a skyscraper? And innocent question. And ChatGPT was like, hey, I cannot give you this information. You're going to go to jail. And I was like, oops. So unfortunately, folks, we cannot tell you on this episode of the Holy Moment podcast how much C4 it takes to blow up a building.
That's really funny, actually. Thank you for looking that up, and thank you for sharing.
Yeah, but Jeffrey will be sharing that at a seminar at his house. So if you want to attend that, feel free to.
Absolutely. I currently live at, hold on.
Don't, I swear you're about to say my address. Don't look up my address.
Oh, no. What I'm about to say is, it's kind of embarrassing that I have to look this up.
Is it your address?
No, it's 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue Northwest, Washington, D.C.
Is that the government's address?
It's, I mean, like, if it weren't my place, then it'd probably be the White House or something.
Yeah, we usually get demonetized for other reasons, but this episode's due to terrorism. So we apologize, everyone out there. We're not terrorists. We're not two tasty terrorists. We're two tasty dudes.
Absolutely. Two tasty dudes.
New name of the podcast.
Safer, like, I'm the only one with ketchup on my face, though, so I don't know how tasty you are. I'm probably tastier.
You don't know what I have underneath my shirt. What if I took my shirt off and I was covered in mayonnaise? That'd be pretty wild.
Ooh. Listen,
But
I'm a mayonnaise kind of guy. So
Yeah, but ketchup by itself is inherently tastier than I love mayonnaise, love it. But if I had to eat a spoonful of mayonnaise versus ketchup all the way.
Maybe you're right. Yeah, I think that ketchup has broader appeal.
That's fair. What's the tastiest condiment one could cover himself in or herself? Is chocolate sauce a condiment? I guess probably.
I don't think that chocolate counts. I mean, maybe if you're using it as fudge on a sundae.
Yeah, that's what I use my chocolate sauce on.
Hey guys, send us an email at theholymomentpodcast@gmail.com. Is chocolate a condiment?
And also, what condiment is the most tasty to cover your body in? For scientific purposes, yeah, please do email us at the Holy Mommy. I'm still that character from that short film, Mommy. The Holy Moment Podcast at gmail.com. That being said, Mr. Host, what else do you want to talk about?
I think that just about does it for. I can't think of anything. No doubt there will be more things that I want to talk about once we conclude. But let's move on to our holy moments then, unless there's anything that you want to bring up.
No, I think I more or less said everything I wanted to talk. What I love about the Holy Moment podcast is I'm sure there are people at home seething, being like, that was the worst review ever. You didn't talk about the terrorists near enough. You didn't talk about the plot near enough. But I love that it's like, this is genuinely what we want to talk about, what we find interesting. And it's just cool. Every movie, I feel like we don't always talk about the most stereotypical things that happen in the movie. Sometimes we do. I feel like RRR was much more verbatim. We're going to talk about the scenes. But sometimes I feel like we just talk about like the movie, but maybe not what everyone wants to hear. Hopefully it's what you at home want to hear. But yeah, all that to be said, I think the only other small thing I wanted to mention was I thought it was hilarious. 2 FBI agents show up. They're like, this is our job now. There's a younger black one and an older one who looks like the older guy from Men in Black, the partner to Will Smith's character. Don't remember his name. They felt like off-brand Men in Black. Now I'm thinking about it. A young black guy, an older dude. Not the point of the story is. The point of the story is this older guy seems like classic clean cut. I do things by the book. I'm kind of a hard ass. Let's get it done. And I'm like, okay, that's his character. All of a sudden, cut to, he's in a helicopter with maybe I'm misremembering it, even though I watched last night, but I swear he had a backwards baseball cap on and sunglasses at night and was like, this is just like Vietnam.
It's just like Saigon.
Yeah, it's like Saigon. Can't wait to go kill some hostages. Like out of the blue. I'm like, I thought he was like a chill, like cold analytical dude. And now he's like, I can't wait to kill people with my backwards baseball cap.
Then the other guy's like, I was in junior high, dude. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, he literally was like, I was in junior high, you dickhead. And I thought that was so funny. And then they exploded and died. And I was like, what are they doing? So that is it. That's all of my notes. That's everything I have to say about Die Hard.
Yeah, this movie was a lot funnier than I was expecting, honestly. I mean, it wasn't, busting my gut funny, but there were just small moments, small comments and quips that got a chuckle out of me.
Speaking of that, you're not about to like if you like that, you'll like my holy moment because that is that's my holy moment.
All right, wonderful. Well, how about you share your holy moment then? I'll get on with mine afterwards.
Okay. I tried really hard for this one because I often pick holy moments that are themes, really big overarching ideas of the movie, which I think is fine. But this movie, I couldn't find anything specific really to hone in on that. And the bigger overarching ideas that I did find, I just didn't feel like merited enough of a holy moment. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to stick to the freaking name of this. I'm going to find a moment that I like the most and why. And here it is. So there's a little bit of nudity in this movie. And one of it comes from two people from the guest party are having sex in a room when the terrorists come in and they bust the door down. But the rest of the nudity comes from this calendar. So this skyscraper is still under construction. So part of it is still like no drywall, just steel beams. And you can tell it's one of those floors that's still under construction. So you can assume that the construction guys put up a Playboy magazine calendar of this woman without a shirt on. And John runs by it in like at the beginning of the movie, just like runs past it. You catch it for half a second in the camera. Later on in the movie, pretty high stakes. He's like this might be one of the most tense moments. He's being chased down. He is on death's door and he runs past it. And he just like touches the woman and says, "Ladies," and then runs away. And it wasn't even necessarily the funniest moment in the movie, but I thought it was the moment that gave us a lot into John McClane's character. And I'm not even joking. Like, again, the whole idea of being like so stressed and scared that you come across angry. I love the idea that the human experience is so weird and bizarre. We do weird and bizarre things when we're by ourselves, when we're with other people. And I love the idea, and I totally believe it. If you were being chased down by terrorists and you were scared out of your mind, you would take that half second to be like, "Ladies," and touch the magazine and then keep running. And I just thought it was super funny and very humanizing to John McClane's character. And there are better moments in the movie and there are cooler themes in the movie, but gosh darn it, that's my holy moment.
No, I mean, that's fair. I think that John McClane is sort of the perfect everyman who just so happens to like gun down 10 terrorists. But that is a great example of that for sure.
It's okay. You don't have to agree. It could be a bad one. I really was racking my mind, and not for like it was a good movie. Like I liked it, so it wasn't like for a lack of being a bad movie. But I wanted to say something that wasn't an overarching theme of the movie. I wanted to pick a moment, and that one just felt unique to me. I really was taken aback of like, oh, well, I could see a person doing that under great distress, and I just thought it was really interesting to like the human experience and why we do things. Or maybe I'm reading too much into it. Maybe he was like, hot woman, boop, moving on.
No, I agreed. I do a lot of weird things when I'm by myself.
Cover yourself in mayonnaise.
I cover myself in mayonnaise. I put ketchup on my face. But that is relatable, right? You're focused on a task, right? And it's important, right? And perhaps you're very stressed, but there's a moment of levity to be found. And those moments of levity are necessary, right? Just a little slice of self-expression there. I mean, I think it helps us feel human and it helps us feel in control, even when circumstances are as wild as they are. I mean, because otherwise he would have felt completely trapped, right, to his surroundings if he didn't make all those comments and he didn't stop to appreciate, I guess, art.
It really is moments that, like we discussed, he feels more like a real person. He doesn't feel invulnerable, and that's what made one of the many things that made this movie a classic is taking our classic action hero and making him feel grounded and like a real dude.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, what about you? I'm excited to hear your holy moment.
My holy moment, if I'm gonna stick to a specific moment, would be when he's radioing Sergeant Al, and he is losing a lot of blood, and he feels that he's on death's door, and he just tells Al, "Hey, if I don't make it out of here, I want you to contact my wife, and I want you to basically tell her that I'm sorry, and that I want to love her better, and I want to commit to loving her better, because I just haven't been doing that, and I haven't been supportive, and I haven't been kind." And then Al's like, "Well, you tell her that. This isn't the end. There's a way out, and there are people that have to be subdued." And I just thought that was very human.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely correct. That is the correct answer for the holy moment for this movie, and not making fun of you. Type of like a generic answer. When I was thinking about a moment I liked, that was like the most grounded character acting moment, and it's one I almost chose. So it is a really good moment, and then that's where we get the setup Al and his whole story of like I shot a kid and I was scared. So they do a lot in that scene. They do a good job with it.
I guess we can move on to ratings. I don't know if
I
we've done ratings
I
these past 2 episodes.
I was literally about to say the same thing. I'm excited to rate it. And again, we don't have to feel the pressure to rate every movie, but today I was like, I want to give a gosh darn rating today.
Yeah, well, I'll start then. I'm going to give it a 3.5.
Very good. I'd have to go back and listen, but I think I've given a higher rating for the past 4 or 5 episodes when we actually give ratings. And I think I'm going to stick with the trend. I think I'm going to give it a 3.7. It's not quite a 4 because 4 to me is really high. That's like really impressive. But again, it does everything it could with its story. I don't think I wanted it to be more deep and more emotional because that would have taken away from the campiness. I didn't want it to be more campy because it would have taken away from the action. So just everything melded together to be perfectly what it needed to be. So that's why I give it a really high rating. But what it will never impact me as much as some other films and how and the story they're trying to tell. Again, that doesn't make it. I think what the story's trying to tell, it does perfectly. But that story and the way it tells it isn't 100% in alignment of what I find to be the perfect type of film. So that's why I give it a 3.7. Really good.
No, I really enjoyed this. I was expecting you to give it a lower score, if I'm being honest with you. But yeah, I think it does everything right as far as the genre goes. And I think the protagonist is someone that you want to root for, precisely because he's not invulnerable, and precisely because he doesn't always make the right decision, but he's trying. And I thought that this movie had a lot more heart than I was expecting. For that reason, I give it the positive score of 3.5.
Yeah, I fully agree. Yeah, I'm happy that this was one that was on the podcast. I'm curious, out of all of your picks and my picks, I put this and The Mummy kind of in the same camp just because I saw them both recently. They're both kind of an action, olderish movie. So I'm curious to see, all I'm trying to say is I'm curious how The Mummy holds up against this when we watch it 2 weeks from now.
Yeah, I'm curious too. I'm hoping I'll be able to find a Blu-ray copy at my local thrift store soon.
Fancy.
Or thrift warehouse, as it were. I'd found what I thought was a copy of The Mummy, and I took it home, and I opened it up, and my girlfriend pointed out, oh, wait, that's the third movie. Yeah.
Classic. Yeah, there's 3.
Which
There's
has
4, technically.
Yeah. Well, the third one, it might be the third or the fourth, but I think it's the third, has a 13% on Rotten Tomatoes. So.
Does it have Tom Cruise in it? Do you know? Tom Cruise is.
No.
That's the 4th one.
Then I haven't seen the 4th.
Brendan Fraser, or whatever his name is, the actor. He's in the 3rd one.
The third one.
3.
The third one, I believe, is sort of what stunted his acting career because he'd injured himself on it, and he just wasn't able to do as much physically. That on top of the whole blacklisting and awful sexual assault stuff, that I'm really happy that he's been able to make his way back into the industry.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to watch The Whale, one of his more recent movies and claim to fame. That would be a good podcast episode, I think.
Yeah. No, I'd love to see that movie too. And that feels like a Vega pick to me.
It does. Yeah. It gives me No One Knows I'm Here, or whatever that movie made us watch that we didn't like. It gives me that kind of vibe. But speaking of, the season's almost over, guys. If you guys don't know at home, we picked 6 categories each. So 12 movies in total, which is 12 weeks, which is 3 months. And we have, after this movie, 2 more movies. Jeffrey, are you okay if I go ahead and not spin the wheel because we only have one more choice for my movie? So just to announce it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, well, we watched 5 of the 6 movies, so I could spin a wheel, but it's going to be the same answer no matter what. And I'm so excited we're ending on this note for mine. I actually would love to end on this note for the whole season, but it's okay. We are watching Tangled. I love Tangled. I'm pretty sure it's my favorite Disney movie of all time, besides maybe Tarzan. This is for the category of Oscar could have been, so it was nominated for an Oscar. Ironic, last week my other pick was RRR. That won an Oscar for the best original soundtrack. Tangled was nominated for best Oscar for soundtrack, but it didn't win. So that's what we're going to watch next week. I mean, a classic. If you haven't seen Tangled, what are you doing? I don't care if you're like a little girl or a 60-year-old grizzled Alaskan fisherman. Everyone should watch this movie.
Agreed. I'm excited to talk about it, and I'm excited to watch it with my girlfriend. She's going to freak.
Yeah, my fiance also loves it, so it's so good.
Yeah. Anyhow, folks, this has been the latest episode, the 20th episode of the Holy Moment podcast. Thank you for tuning in. And if you have any thoughts on the movie Die Hard, send them our way. We would love to read them out loud and discuss it on the podcast. You can find us anywhere where you can find podcasts, specifically Spotify, YouTube. We also post reels on Instagram and what's the other one? TikTok. Yeah. That's the big one. Anyhow, it's been lovely. Y'all have a nice day, and we will see you next week.